guys, my name's Connor and this is my channel A River With No End, and today I'm going to deviate away from the lyric video a little bit and present to you some things that you can pull out next time somebody said that Jesus didn't actually rise from the dead. So an apologetic is a defense of one's faith using reason and historical fact and logic. And I'll be talking about primarily what atheists might suggest happened to Jesus' body after he was crucified, and how we know what actually did happen, happened. So on Friday, Final Supper, Jesus is betrayed by Judas in the Garden of Gethsemane for about the equivalent of $300. He is arrested by the guards of the Sanhedrin, who are the local Jewish leaders, and taken in front of Pontius Pilate, who's the Roman leader. Pontius Pilate finds nothing wrong with Jesus, so to appease the Jewish, he just sentences him to be flogged. But the type of flogging he gets is pretty brutal. They use something called a flagellum, which is a type of Roman whip which has things like stone and bone and little hooks into the many weaves, so each time it strikes you, it rips up a little bit of flesh. So after coming away from this whipping, he's brought back to Pontius Pilate, back in front of a big crowd. Pontius Pilate says, "Alright, can we let him go now? He's had enough." The crowd, however, being spurred on by the Sanhedrin, the Jewish leaders, say, "No, crucify him." So Pilate washes his hands of the business and say, "Okay, this blood is on your hands now, guys." So at Calvary Hill, nails into his palms, into his feet, and he's put up on the cross with a little sign above his head reading, "Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews." And after he's been on the cross for about 6 hours, he cries, "It is finished," and he dies. So Jesus is taken down. Now normally the Romans will just leave the body out there a few days to scare away potential criminals, then just throw the body in a pit. However, Joseph of Arimathea, who is one of the Sanhedrin but secretly one of Jesus' followers, talks to Pilate and begs to him, "Please let me bury the body in my tomb." Pilate capitulates, and so Joseph, along with his friend Nicodemus, who is another one of the Sanhedrin, they take Jesus' body and take him to Joseph's family tomb. They wrap the body in linens and anoint it with about 45 kilograms of myrrh and aloes, which are two types of plants. They serve two purposes: one, to disguise the smell of a decomposing body, and two, they cement the mixtures. They cement the linens closed and stop them coming loose. So Jesus at this point looks quite similar to an Egyptian mummy. As the two men leave, a rock is rolled down a rudimentary track in front of the tomb. Now because it's rolled downwards, it's a lot easier to close than it is to open. But come Sunday morning, this is where it gets interesting, and this is where people tend to have disagreements. So Mary, the mother of Jesus, and Mary of Magdalene both come to the tomb to finish anointing the body with fragrances and spices, but they find the tomb is empty, Jesus is gone, and just the linens remain. Looking at the facts, there are 5 things that could have happened, and I'll discuss why 4 of them aren't true and 1 of them is. Theory 1, the Romans took it. Now we know this didn't happen because the Romans wanted peace in this troublesome area. There is a very fine balance of power between the Roman rule and the Jewish Sanhedrin, and the Romans did not want to do anything to upset this, especially as Pilate's boss was coming down to visit the area in a few days. Also, the Romans were experts in killing people. So false, because taking Jesus' body would have resulted in Jewish rebellion or worse, and false again because the Romans correctly thought Jesus was dead. Theory 2, the Jewish leaders stole the body. Now, let me get one thing straight. The Jewish leaders, the Sanhedrin, they hated Jesus. The things that he said threatened their way of life. Unlike most of the population, the Sanhedrin were rich, corrupt and powerful, and having Jesus around would have disrupted all of that. If they had taken Jesus' body, then the local Jewish population would have thought Jesus had risen again, and they would have stopped listening to what the Sanhedrin were saying and stopped giving them their money. So we know this is false because it's not in the Sanhedrin's best interest to steal the body. Theory 3, the 11 remaining disciples stole the body. Now we know this is false because during Jesus' crucifixion, they buggered off. They thought he was immortal, so seeing him up there in blood and pain, they got scared and they ran off. Even Peter, who was Jesus' favourite, denied that he knew Jesus when questioned on 3 separate occasions. What a great friend. Furthermore, the tomb was sealed by an official Roman wax seal, and 2 Roman guards were posted outside. If they mucked up their job, they themselves would have been killed. Additionally, even if the disciples did steal the body, they gained nothing out of it. Most of the disciples, after travelling around the area and preaching about Christ's resurrection, were killed in very, very painful ways, and they all died dirt poor. So we know this is false because the disciples stood to gain nothing out of his resurrection. Theory 4. Jesus wasn't actually dead. Now this is the silliest theory. A. Jesus was absolutely torn up from the whipping with the Roman flagellum. They go hundies-as until muscle, sinew, tendons and veins are all visible. B. Nails in the hands and the feet and a spear in the side, probably puncturing his lung. If Jesus didn't die from blood loss or suffocation, he would have died from bacterial infection. C. When the Romans took him down from the cross, they would have double checked to make sure he was dead. This is their job and they were experts at it, and if they mucked it up somehow, again, they themselves would have been put to death. D. He was bound up tighter than a straitjacket and cemented with the mixture before being placed in the tomb. So false, because saying that Jesus never died is a sloppy reach for a conclusion that you simply can't arrive at via the facts. And finally, theory 5. Jesus rose. In that day and age, in Israel 2,000 years ago, women were not taken seriously. They couldn't be trusted, they weren't allowed to own businesses, and they simply weren't given the same considerations as men. But who was it that discovered the empty tomb? 2 women. So this actually adds credibility to the story, because if you were going to invent a religion in the Middle East 2,000 years ago, the last thing you'd have is 2 women as your primary witnesses. Unless, of course, that is how it actually happened. So I've given you today some recent evidence and historical fact to say that Jesus did actually come back to life. And believe me when I say there is so much more. The faith one must have as an atheist to believe one of the first 4 implausible theories I presented is far beyond what I need to accept as the irrefutable 5th. So thank you for watching. Here are some books I'd recommend if you want to look more into the topic. If this video is popular, perhaps I might do some more. Till then, adios.